Hi there, my name is Miss Townsend and I love math. Welcome to Math with Townsend. This video is for grade 9 applied students who are looking for more help while they review for their EQAO math test. This is video number 2. So just a reminder that what we're doing in this video is we're looking at questions from the EQAO website, and these are the questions that were released related to last year's EQAO. So if you go to this web address, you can find those questions, and we're just going to be taking them up one at a time. And again, at the end of the video, if you have any questions, please post them. And if there's any question that you would like to see more examples of, please post that as well. So we are now on to question number 4. And it says the cost of an MP3 player is $299. A newer model costs 20% more. Which of the following is closest to the sale price of the newer model after a 30% discount? So there's really 2 steps to this question. Step 1 is going to be to add 20% to find the new price. So it says that a newer model is 20% more. So we're going to have to add 20%. Then we're going to have to subtract 30% from the new price because of the discount. So there's going to be 2 steps to this question, adding 20% and then subtracting 30%. And in case you're wondering, no, you can't just do minus 10%. Or can you? We'll find out at the end. Okay, so first of all, we're going to take $299 and we want to add 20% more. So first, we have to figure out what is 20% of $299. Now, you are absolutely allowed to pretend that this was $300. And if we pretended that this was $300, what would 10% of $300 be? So let's kind of do this in red because this is an alternative that might be a good idea if you hate percent. We're going to pretend that this was $300 because then 10% we know is $30 and 20% would therefore be $60. So all we would have to do is add $300 plus $60 to get the new price of $360. Now we need to get we need to reduce the price by 30%. So again, the first step is, what is 30% of 360? Well, you can always do this. 10% is 36. So 20%, multiply this by 2. 36 times 2 is 72. 30%, so add another 36. So every 10% is another $36. So 30% of 360 would be 108. And so therefore, the final price would be $360 minus the discount of 108, and that would give me a final price of $252. Now, look at how I did the work in red. First of all, I rounded to 300. Perfectly fine. You are absolutely allowed to do that. I think that's one of the reasons why they gave you a number like $299. Then, one of the easiest ways to do percent is to do 10%. So 10% is to just make it 1 degree smaller. So 10% of 300 was 30. Therefore, 20% is 30 plus 30, or 60. That gave me a new price of $360. Now, I kept going. I wanted to now reduce the price by $30. So the new price was $360. So 10% of that is 36. Add 36 and I have 20%. Add another 36 and I have 30%. So this is the discount amount. So the final price is the difference of 252. That is absolutely positively a fine way of doing percent. But I think most of you are at the point where you want to be able to use your calculators and more directly get the right answers. So let me kind of start fresh and we'll look at the question again. And this time we'll do it in a much more mathematical way. Not that there was anything non-mathematical about what we did, but we'll do it more directly. So the first thing we have to do is we have to add 20% of 299, we'll leave it at 299, to 299. So I'm increasing the price by 20%. So I need to know what is 20% of 299. So the math you do is you take 20% and you write it as a decimal. So let me make sure that's very neat. It still looks like the number 20, but it's now decimal 20. That's 20%. And again, the math was to divide by 100. 20% of 299 looks like this. The word of in math is almost always a multiplication. So 0.20 times 299 gives me 5980. So when the question says that the new model costs 20% more, I can cross that out and say that the new model costs 5980 more. That's what I know now. So therefore, I can tell you that the new model costs 5980 plus the original price of 299. So the new model costs $358.80. Now, going back to the question, we are told that there is a discount, and the discount is 30% off. So 30% off, first of all, I need to calculate what is 30% of 358.8. And that'll tell me how much I'm saving. So again, 30% becomes 0.30. Of is multiply. So 30% of 358.80, oops, equals 107 dollars and 64 cents. So that means that the sale price of the new model is 358.80 minus 107.64. So the sale price of the new model is $261.16. And oops, 251. Oops, looked at my calculator wrong. My bad. There, $251.16. And that gives us an answer of A. Now, that was a long time for one question, but I know that this is the sort of question that a lot of you were saying were giving you trouble. Okay, so hopefully now, after taking it a little more slowly, it makes sense. But let's look at what I said at the very beginning of the question. And I'm erasing because I know that you can just pause and rewind the video if you really wanted to copy anything down. What if you had just said, you know what, I don't have time. I'm just going to say if I add 20% and subtract 30%, can't I just subtract 10%? Let's see what would have happened. 10% of the original price is so the original price was $299. So 10% of that would be $29.90. And therefore, if I subtract them, because I'd be down 10%, I would get oops, 299 minus 29.99, $269.01. Now, that's not the right answer, but you'll notice they're trying to trick you into thinking you did it right. So do not do these shortcuts. If they were allowed, I guarantee you I would teach them to you. Unfortunately, you have to do both steps of this question if you want to get the right answer. Okay, so add 20% and then take off 30%. Okay, so let's look at the next question. What is the value of this expression? So this is an integer question. You all have calculators, but make sure you know that when you're doing a fraction, the rules of Bedmas tell us that the numerator and denominator have invisible brackets around them. So that means that before you do that big fraction line, which means divide, you have to do the math on top and the math on the bottom. So negative 12, well, that's just negative 12. Negative 6 plus 3. Again, use your calculator correctly, or let's do this one the old-fashioned way with a number line. Why not? So I'm at negative 6. I have to add 3, which means I have to go forwards by 3 units. So where am I? I'm at negative 3. Now, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So the answer is C. Question 6. Which value of x makes this equation true? So here's what we discussed doing in class, and I'm going to show you this again, and then I'll show you another method. So I'm going to take value A, sub it into the equation, and see if this is a true statement. So I'm going to use my calculator. Is 1 plus the square root of 3 equal to 10? So when I type in 1 plus the square root of 3, I get 1 plus 1.7 something. So 2.7, is that equal to 10? No, that's definitely not equal to 10. So then I know the answer is not A. So let's keep going. If I take 9, is 1 plus the square root of 9 equal to 10? Well, the square root of 9 is 3. So 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 is not equal to 10. So I know that it's not this one. Let's look at C. Is 1 plus the square root of 18 equal to 10? Well, in my calculator, the square root of 18 is about 4.2. 1 plus 4.2 is 5.2, and that is still not equal to 10. So I really hope it's D. Let's see what happens. 1 plus the square root of 81. The square root of 81 is 9. Oh, this is looking good. Yay! That's the true statement, so I know the answer is D. So that is absolutely a perfectly valid way of doing this question. And sometimes there are simply questions on the EQAO that we don't know what else to do with them other than try and see what works. However, this one, there is another method, and it's much more mathematical. And I know some of you are not going to like it, but I want to show it to you anyway. You remember a unit we did called equation solving. And in equation solving, the goal was to isolate the variable. And so, for example, I need to get rid of positive 1. To get rid of positive 1, I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides of the equation. That's going to give me square root x. Oops, square root x. And here, 10 minus 1 is 9. Now, this is something we didn't do. I'm just going to rewrite this because it looks pretty messy. I need to get rid of square root. What is the opposite of square root? Well, the opposite of square root is square. So on both sides of the equation, I'm going to square. Square root of x squared is x. 9 squared is 81. There's the answer. So it's a really fast method if you understand it, but the other method certainly worked as well. So that's the end of this video, and I'll meet you on video number 3.